Hey, Pickle Bros and Pickle Sisters, welcome to Season 2 of the Picklebros Podcast. Continuing shout out to our sponsor, Carbon Pickleball, and adding a new sponsor, Gearbox. Guys, I actually realized we're a bit of a house divided because Stolp and I use Carbon, and Jesse and Tim now use the Gearbox Pro Power Paddle. Although Tim, I'm not quite sure how long this phase is going to last with you, right?
Yeah, we'll see. It's definitely a awesome paddle. I mean, I couldn't recommend it enough, but it has to agree with your specific play style, and that verdict is still out for me.
Stolp, what did you say, Tim? Tim, one of the dirty little secrets about the Pickle Bros, everybody, is that Tim hates change, and he likes using paddles that are super ancient. What did you call it, Stolp?
He rocks a 1993 Gearbox, whatever, doesn't exist anymore, but he plays better than anything I've ever seen with it. So whatever works for you.
Yeah.
The point is, it's Gearbox. It's Gearbox. Yes, it's from 1993, but whatever. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Now, listeners, before you lambast us, put down the pitchforks, put down the torches. We know that this has been a bit of a hiatus. It's been a long time, and we know. But towards the latter end of last year, a few of us had some personal stuff that was slowing things down. And then I had some travel. Stolp, I think you had some travel as well. And then we rolled right into the holidays. And we're like, do we really want to worry about the podcast in the holidays through the end of the year? Let's just focus on family. So then we roll into the new year and we're like, start of January, new episode. And then I get hit by COVID like the first week of January, puts me on my butt for 3 weeks. We miss like twice we tried to do the episode or thinking about trying to do it, but I just couldn't talk. So anyway, we know that we're a disaster. We know you've been unfair. We have been unfair to you faithful listeners, and we very much apologize for it. But I want to shout out so many of you. In the YouTube comments, Stolp, I know you went through there, saw tons of comments and support from people. I know that there have been players in our own ecosystem here in town who have mentioned, hey, where's the podcast? We're missing an episode. And I want to give a couple actually specific shout outs. First to Gabe Itch, one of our fans who came out from California to play with us. And he called me out of the blue and he's like, where's my podcast? And he's like, give me a hard time. He's like, I had this 7-hour drive and I couldn't listen to a podcast. I almost fell asleep and that's your fault. So Gabe, I'm sorry. We collectively apologize for almost killing you for not having a new episode for you to listen to. I also want to shout out Mark Shields. Guys, this is an interesting thing about DUPR. Is that not his real name? That's his Facebook name, Timmy. So
yeah, he's hilarious. He's a clown.
All right. Well, I'm not going to say Gabe, I don't know what your real last name is, but I know what Facebook says. And now that I'm putting an inappropriate joke together, so we're going to move past that, Gabe.
Oh, you made his day. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I absolutely. I love you, Gabe. You are a clown though. But Mark Shields messaged me on DUPR, guys. There's that DUPR function now. They've got the you can follow people. The messaging system is a lot better. So one of our listeners, Mark, messaged me. He's like, where's the podcast episode? And I actually he messaged me earlier in the month, but I didn't see it till yesterday. I'm like, it just so happens that you're asking that. Tomorrow is an episode. So I told him I'd give him a shout out. He told us that as a listener, he deserves a new episode. And then I do not know her name. I may have mentioned this to a couple of you guys, but when I went out to Daytona for the Diamond Amateur Championships to play with our buddy Craig Duncan, we've mentioned him on the show before. I do 7 hours of travel, flight, driving, and the next day is the event. So I show up at the venue. I'm like, I've never played in Florida. I just need to hit a couple balls. So I'm putting my shoes on. It's like 8:00 at night or so. And I'm just talking with Craig, and a lady kind of taps me on the shoulder, gets my attention, and she's like, "Where are you from?" And like, hadn't spoken to her, just talking to Craig. She was talking with her friends in another group on the bleachers next to us. It's like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, Colorado. She's like, are you in a podcast? And I'm like, yeah, I have a podcast. She's like, are you a part of the Pickle Bros? And I'm like, how do you know that? She's like, I recognize your voice. And so that really made me feel really cool that it wasn't my face, it was my voice. The listeners know my voice out in the wild in Florida. And I didn't get her name. I was just like so caught off guard. I was like, you're making my day. I gave her a hug, and she put on her friends that he's got a podcast. And it was a really beautiful moment. But like, so I don't get your name, but shout out to you. That was a super awesome moment for me, and I appreciate it.
You know why these people recognize your voice, Ian? It's because you never stop talking, dude. We've been on for 6 minutes, and it's just been all you.
Oh, hey, I'm taking my moment in the spotlight. We're back. I've had this build up. I've got to talk to my people. Yeah, and I'll give you your moment.
Yeah, I'm taking my moment. I'm gonna say we're back. And happy 2024. You know, you get to say Happy New Year if you haven't seen somebody in the new year. It is 2024. We did sneak in here in January, so I'm happy to be back. In our own ecosystem, we had people like Mike Lee, Jim Peterson, Seth Bowles. Like, they're reaching out saying, "Where's the podcast?" Jared Menard, Tim Shepard. Like, so we are glad to be back too. Tim Whiteman, Jesse Malkin, Ian Leaf, Eric Stolp. We're happy to be back. So let's get rolling, fellas. Let's get rolling. We got a lot to talk about. Enough with the thanks and congratulations. Let's get into this.
Yeah. All right, listeners. Now we're going to kick you back to the curb like we've done for the last couple of months, and we're going to get into the beefs. Timmy, I want to pass it over to you first. Beef or no beef? Where are you at today?
Well, bros, as the resident get off my lawn guy, I have volumes and volumes of beefs. It's just the segment that keeps on giving, but not today. No, today I'm just happy to tell anyone, because we love Carbon, but my first love is Gearbox. We always come back to our first love. And yesterday they agreed to sponsor me. So I'm officially a proud member of the Gearbox family. Let's go. I love Gearbox. They're the brand that got me into pickleball. All my friends in Georgia played with Gearbox. And I reached out to them to see if they would care to bring me on board. I listed, some of the things that I do in the community. I did bring up the Pickle Bros, of course, and they agreed to sponsor me. So I'm just super excited. Can't wait. Love the brand. Oh, I was going to do this. There's a Gearbox symbol right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Yep, there you go. I'll be getting 4 more of those shirts in the mail, but not these specifically. But yeah, super excited. So I have no beef today at all, but I have lots of beefs for the future. I guarantee you. Yeah,
Tim, you got to update that wardrobe, but that shirt's from 1993. Jesse,
matches the paddle.
It matches the paddle. Jesse, beef or no beef, my guy?
I have a beef. It's a small one, but we have a tournament coming up this weekend here in Colorado Springs, hosted by Lifetime. And I think this is a world first in that this tournament, the 3.0 players, their matches will count towards DUPR. And the 3.5 players, they're putting it on the line. Their matches will count towards DUPR. And the 4.0 players, their matches will count towards DUPR. But the 4.5 players, their matches will not count towards DUPR. And I don't know if this has ever happened before, where you have, within one tournament, you have some brackets counting and some brackets not. And we talked about DUPR Dodgers a while back. Apparently there are so many of them at the 4.5 level that Lifetime, instead of telling them to get a Wambulance and go to Walgreens over on the corner and buy some adult diapers, has decided to cater to this group by allowing them to play without risking their poor, sacred DUPR scores. That's my beef.
Dang.
Okay, well,
good beef.
I have a comment on that, Jesse. So Ian mentioned earlier that I hate change, but I guess I've gotten used to the idea that we just coddle our high level DUPR guys, because I talked to Aaliyah in this case, who's the director of the tournament, and I recommended that course of action because I just kind of assume at this point, like, I remember having this argument not too long ago. Like, you guys should put your DUPRs on the line. You know, if you're really good, you should go out and prove it. Yada yada yada. It's amazing how far I've come from that opinion, because I just kind of it is sunk in. These guys don't want to put it on the line. So now it's, well, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna just have it be so that the conditions in the tournament are not welcoming to these guys that don't want to put it on the line, or do you want to have them show up at your tournament? Let's just have the top level not go towards DUPR so that they'll at least show up. Oh, but let's have the 4-0s count towards DUPR and the 3-5s count towards DUPR. So that's me. That was all me. I'll take credit for it. I'm giving these guys first class accommodations to their Walgreens to get their diapers. I just want them to be part of the event. So it's hilarious, but that's what it is.
Oh, shout out to all you tournament organizers. Like, I've just seen some of the behind the scenes stuff over the past months of what that entails. Everyone out there, it's not easy. And I have so much respect for anyone who puts on organized group play, because it's tough to make everyone happy. And Tim's seen some of the folks that have, not decided to play, and what that does to the level of competition, and you have to manipulate these things. But Jesse, the Wambulance, I was not expecting that this morning. So thank you for some good beef.
Yeah, that was some Pickle Bros gold right there. And let's call it like it is. They're DUPR dodgers, but the only way you're going to get guys like that in your tournament is if you let them, duck, dodge, dip, dodge, and dive, or
nice.
Yeah. Stolp. What's your beef or anti-beef?
Yeah. So as the guy glass half full guy in the group, doesn't matter. I still got a beef. Like, after a few months off here, I got a beef, even if I'm the positive, happy one. I've experienced this. So since the last time the podcast has come out, I've probably played 60,000 games of pickleball. And so I've had a large sample size of things to pull from. And one of which has happened multiple times, and once in a tournament. And it's people who walk behind while play is going on without any awareness or care or concern in the world that a competitive match is going on. I've seen it, like I said, in a tournament. I've seen it in rec play, and it blows my mind away. And it distracted the heck out of me in one case, because I was so mad and we lost the point. As these people are walking behind our opponents in the middle of a point, not even looking around. And I'm like, where's the self-awareness? Where is the understanding of, look what's going on around you, and the fact that it does impact the play at hand? Like when someone walks across you and you're in a 16-shot dink battle at the time. It is incredibly selfish. It is just lacking awareness. And I've seen it from rec players that I don't recognize to some folks that I think should know better. If someone is playing in front of you and you're going to a court down the way, wait for that point to be over. Make some eye contact or some nonverbal communication that you are going to be crossing the court or just walking behind. It's the courteous thing to do. And it blows my mind that there are people out there that just think it's okay to interrupt a point and not think anything of it and go live in their own la-di-da world. Like, let's go, people. Be better. That's my beef.
Hey, Tim, you know who doesn't have that problem anymore? Tell the listeners doesn't have that kind of problem anymore. You and
Are
me.
we getting into this?
Oh, we will. I was just gotta get that zing in there.
We don't have that problem anymore. It's true.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know. I guess we're gonna get into this. So
hold on. Let me get my anti-beef in,
yes, please,
and then I will pass over the Pickle Bros relevant big news, and I'll be quick with it. I have an anti-beef this morning, or a no beef this morning. I have realized there's a lot of value in playing in foursomes, I guess, with three other guys who are what I would say below your level, because one, they can be great guys, so much fun, laughter. You can coach them, you can teach them, and you can work on some things that you otherwise would never try if you've got a 4-5 plus in front of you, because it's just, asking for trouble. I found myself yesterday with some time, and some buddies hit me up, and a buddy hit me up. He was like, "Hey, we need a fourth for tomorrow at 10 a.m." I was like, "Sure, I'll show up," and I did, and it was two 4-0 or newly burgeoning 4-0s. This guy is about a 4-4, and I think I'm just a couple ticks higher than that. But it was great. It was such a fun play session. Wonderful people, tons of laughs, nasty Nelsing each other, and I just got so much from it in terms of coaching them, in terms of me working on things, not being too stressed out, but they were just good enough where I actually had to play serious and smart because I couldn't just completely throw it off. And we've discussed a lot about trying to play with guys, raising your level, challenging yourself, trying to seek out the best players who can kick your butt. I actually think there's something to be said for mixing in the inverse of that every once in a while. Yeah. All right,
except
Timmy.
if it's for DUPR. There's the other end of the DUPR dodgers, the DUPR manipulators. Like if you're adding those into DUPR and it's affecting your score positively, I got a beef with that. Here's your glass half negative guy.
Tim's come up with a term. It's called seal clubbing. When you go and get some DUPR points off people who you shouldn't be taking DUPR points off of. It's my favorite. All right, Tim, launch into it. What did our listeners miss in these last couple of months? We got a couple things to say. Why don't you kick it off with your My News?
Yeah, so one of the bigger developments in the Colorado Springs area, anyway, and I'm sure it happens in other areas too, is a bit of a migration that occurred. We all used to play at Lifetime Fitness. We all still love Lifetime Fitness. There's a tournament this weekend. I'm playing in it. I think, Eoin, are you playing in that?
I was waitlisted. I'm out.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll still love Lifetime, but some of us moved over to the other club in the area, Springs Pickleball. And we got a group going over there. It's a little bit longer of a drive for a few of us, but yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. There's a lot of players over there, a lot of different players over there. So it's been interesting navigating that and not seeing the bros every single morning like we used to, and some of the bros that we used to play with. So we all come together on Marco Polo, but we don't play in the same place anymore. And that's been a really interesting development. I mean, that, again, I guess maybe I do like change because I was kind of spearheading some of this and, organizing play again and trying to bring new people into the 5 a.m. mix, which I'm all about, was, it's been interesting. I've had my hands in it, and yeah, it's a big change around here. It was a huge, it was a big deal. It happened right around Christmas, and there's a lot of reaction from a lot of us, like, "Oh my gosh, this really happened! You guys are leaving," and so we're still kind of working through that because it's kind of momentous the way it came down. But I think it's been largely good. It's brought a lot of new people into the mix, and we're still going to have these club duels that we're talking about every month or every couple of months. We're going to have Lifetime versus Springs Pickleball. So that's going to be super fun. And obviously, we still hang out and talk. So no huge change, but it was definitely a change. So
yeah. And nobody can walk behind our courts at Springs Pickleball.
Yes, that was the point you were trying to bring up earlier is
yes.
Springs Pickleball has the barriers between courts. You don't have that problem nearly as much. Although just yesterday, I have to say, I was in the middle of a grueling point, and it was a big point. And then, like, this could be a future beef. A ball did roll behind us. It does happen occasionally, and I would not have stopped the point, because it wasn't interfering. It wasn't in the field of play. Like, it was behind us, and the guy said, "Oh, ball," and then I gave him kind of a look. I didn't really mean to. It was just kind of, whatever. And it's like, "I'm just making sure you don't get injured, Tim." Like, oh, all right. I think we lost the point, but
that's the get off my lawn look.
Yes. The full body eye roll.
One of my best looks. Yeah.
An irony about this whole situation is the main impetus for you guys leaving Lifetime was shortage of courts.
Yes.
And then several days after you signed 12-month contracts at the Springs Pickleball, Lifetime announced that it's building 4 more courts, doubling the number of courts. So it's really a shame.
Well, and
Yeah.
I guess we just should say thank you for leading the charge and then making them push their chips all in on the building more courts thing, which is its own conversation for a different time. Because boy, adding 4 more courts to a tennis facility that was built to be a tennis facility has caused some, as you can
Civil
imagine,
war.
yes, some ripples in the tennis versus pickleball community. So. Just so the listeners know, Jesse and I are still lifetime members, and Eoin and Tim are now Springs Pickleball members. And pros and cons to any situation, and in this case, I think, you know, as we took the group to a smaller size, we do less group play now. We used to have 3 courts, sometimes 4 courts at 5 a.m. And we do these massive king of the court style play sessions, which now Tim orchestrates over at Springs Pickleball. Now we do less of that. We have 2 days a week where we'll get 2 courts maybe for group play, but then the other 3 days are individually scheduled foursomes, which for me personally, I missed that. I missed some of that once we got so large, where you could get into a rhythm of doing series and, you know, different score structures and staying with partners. There's some benefit to doing that and learning, you know, when you're rotating partners and opponents so rapidly, like you don't get to see those same looks and learn from things that you're getting exposed to. So I'm looking at it. I don't think there's a grass is greener type situation, because there's pros and cons to both clubs. But we certainly do miss you guys, and it is felt. But at the same time, we're developing our games in new ways, which is good for everybody.
Yeah, that's well said, Stolp. And Jesse, that was the other thing. One of the other things I wanted to mention was, as soon as we leave, Lifetime's like, more courts, you know. And so Tim and I definitely think that it was completely us. We catalyzed them, we put them in motion. But it has created these pros and cons. We're able to evaluate the different situations, strengths, and weaknesses of the different clubs, of the different play organization. But one of the really cool things that's going to come out of this is we're going to have a Lifetime versus Springs Pickleball men's team event, if you will. And I'm like, we haven't quite started organizing that, but it's going to be a lot of fun. But speaking of team tournaments, Jesse, why don't you give us a brief recap of we did the draft we teed it up. We did the draft last year. We had all of it, and then we disappeared. So people missed what actually happened with our men's team event we put together.
Yeah, it was a big success. I think everybody felt it was well run and had a good time. And I was particularly happy because my team won. And it turned out that I by dumb luck or whatever reason, I recruited some rising stars to my team, mainly because I was interested in getting strong singles players, because if there were a tiebreaker, there was an enormous advantage to be had by having a strong singles player who could finish up and win that tiebreaker. But as luck would have it, or skill would have it, we never actually played singles. We never had a tie. So, thanks to my teammates, Miles and Seth and Monty. And, sure is interesting looking back at the draft and like seeing Miles. I think I picked him number 11 in the second round.
Yeah.
I don't think he would be so late if we were to do it all over again.
He's like a 5.2 now, DUPR rated player. He's amazing.
And real, like a real. Like,
very.
The lowest DUPR guy in that group, I think, is 4.8. So nice draft, Jesse.
Yeah. And kudos to you, Jesse. You played fantastic in that as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So it wasn't just your team. You captaining that team and being a part of their success and your success. You played out of your mind. Great. And you are a quality high-level player.
So.
Yeah, it was frustrating for sure.
Actually, that's good to note for just for our own observations, is that was a crazy stacked event in terms of the talent that was there. And Jesse, that was the best I'd seen you play. And I've seen you play good, but like, you were a complete wall. And then no matter what configuration of team you put together, you had 3 world beaters next to you. I think Seth, Monty, and Miles in particular were kind of peaking at the right time. Like, they had always been solid, but they had like just crossed into like burgeoning studs like the week before. And then Seth has always been great, right? But it's like there was no weakness on Team Jesse or whatever you dubbed your team name. So yeah, kudos to Jesse there. And Tim, the last bit of information that our listeners or fans may have missed is our adoption of rally scoring.
Yeah. So we used to never even think about doing rally scoring, right? And I think it was the Aurora team event, Jesse, where I first played rally scoring. But before that, we had never given it a moment's thought of incorporating it. And now I've just discovered, in my opinion, it's more fun. It's just more fun. It's faster. It's more intense. You're just more engaged. You can't waste a single point. You've got to take everything seriously. There's no playing around. And I used to make the argument that, I don't want to drill. I'll just work on stuff during morning play. Well, you can't do that if it's rally scoring. It's just too important every point just means more.
There's always a point on the board, no matter what's going on.
Yeah.
Points go on the board. And
so I've been using rally scoring in the morning play. It just makes the morning play system, if you're doing King's Court, rally scoring just works so much better with that. And it's now kind of a thing. It's kind of here to stay. And I've been doing these round robin events where you partner with a different person for each of the 9 rounds. Or I guess we've been doing 11 rounds, but for Stolp's sake and his baseball background, we're going to go to 9 innings, 9 rounds when I do it next month. You play with a different person for each round, and these games are all rally scoring. They're going into DUPR. It's just a really exciting development, I think, because I really do think it's fun. Some people don't like it. When they show up for morning play, I try to accommodate them with some throwback standard scoring. But yeah, I prefer standard scoring or rally scoring straight up to standard. So that's been something that's definitely changed since we last podcasted.
I promise you there's listeners out there that are saying to themselves, what is rally scoring, Tim? Can you just give us a quick what it is? What's different about it?
Well, you score a point no matter who's serving, whether it's you or the opposition. You and your partner will stay on your side. So if you're a left side player, you can be on the left side for the entire match, unless you want to call a timeout and you and your partner can switch sides. But you play to 21 and you get a point whether you're serving or returning. But in most cases, you freeze at 20 or on game point, which means if you have to win that point on your serve. So it goes back to standard scoring unless the other team gets that point and ties it up. They can keep scoring as returners. But if it's your team's game point, you have to win on your own serve. And it's win by 2.
Yeah, and I love that. So go ahead, Jesse. Go ahead.
Is there a particular type of player who would do better in rally scoring than in traditional scoring? Or is it like you're good at one, you're good at the other?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I actually think that's a rather quick and easy to answer. Is the people who take care of the ball, are more consistent, and make less errors are absolutely going to have more success in rally scoring. Because if you're going for a big, I'm going to use our boy Bonu as an example. Bon Johns, he has one of the best serves in town. Yeah, Ben Johns. That was a little inside joke. Everyone just got to see a quick sight too. When that dude is on with his serve, he's very hard to deal with. But his error rate is relatively high. When you're playing standard scoring, that doesn't punish him. When you're playing rally scoring, he backs off on his serve difficulty that he's giving you significantly. Because if he makes an error, and he'll do that, if he serves 10 times, he'll have 2 or 3 of them that will be, into the net or out of bounds. Those are just free points you're giving away. Same thing with guys who maybe like to pull the trigger a lot or take risks. If you're on offense and if you're not careful with the shots you're selecting, you're giving away free points, and they can slip away from you so quickly. So I think, yeah,
I think it rally scoring is difficult for people with a big serve because they can't get into that rhythm because you serve once and then your partner serves once. So there's a break.
Bounces.
Whereas a traditional, you can just keep going and keep getting that ace and
That's
get
true.
into a rhythm. I also think rally scoring is good for people who need to stack because you can basically not have to stack. So if you're left-handed, for example, and you prefer to play on the right, you can just be on the right and live on the right the whole game.
Absolutely.
Yep, that was definitely going to be my point. Is if you're left-handed, it's beneficial because you don't have to move around. But some of the things that I've seen, and I don't have a preference. I like both play styles, and there has been slow to adopt and quick to change people out there. But you can always call a timeout to switch sides if you want to. Nobody does. I mean, very rarely. I would say I've seen people call timeouts to switch from the left to the right. So I find myself on rally scoring mornings living on the left, which is fine. However, there are some strengths of mine on the right, not as dominant on the left, that I just don't get to utilize because I'm boxed into that left side. And it wouldn't make sense for me to switch to right for those other strengths, but you don't get to see both sides of the court. I will also say some of the points develop at the high level in similar ways more and more over time. Like, so you play the same point, it feels like sometimes. But what it does is, as was mentioned, is it adds pressure to your consistency, and that makes you better pickleball player no matter what. If you have to get your serves in, if you have to get your returns deep, and you're really focused on those things tend to matter more in traditional scoring settings. Like if you're up by 5, at least I have this problem. I'll mentally check out sometimes and be like, oh my gosh, we have all this time to come, like not to worry about. We can score these last 3 points or whatever. And I'll mentally check out, and then swings will happen. And it's just like, at the end of it, it just doesn't feel like a clean game of pickleball. Whereas in rally scoring, you have to be sharp the entire time. So I do appreciate that about this scoring system.
Yeah, that's all great stuff, guys. The only thing I'll say about it is I tend to like to play a bit of a slower game, and anything to make guys like Tim second guess pulling the trigger is good for me. I like to slow it down, Tim. If you hit the net, it's my point. So don't speed up at me just because it works all the time. Just don't do it. There was another piece of big news that happened coincidentally yesterday. DUPR had a massive update. Jesse, I think I'll pass over to you first, but guys, we haven't really discussed it. Curious what your take is on this new update, thoughts on the changes they made. So Jesse, roll into it.
Sure. So they're going to go back to the system they once had in which point differentials matter. Basically the argument is if I lose to Tim 0-11, that's worse than if I lose to Tim 12-14. And so by ignoring those point differentials, DUPR was essentially throwing away useful data. So they're going to go back to that, which is, of course, a major change, and I think it's a good change. But it does mean that you have this sort of weird dynamic where a player could win a game, and if DUPR thinks you didn't win by enough, your DUPR could go down, and that is unpalatable for a lot of people. And then they made a number of other changes that I think are a little bit more minor. Like they said, every match matters. So even if you play somebody who has no rating, they're just new to DUPR, that's going to somehow affect your own score, probably as that person plays more and DUPR can figure out how good that person is. And then they're going to make it so that recent games count more than long ago games, which I'm surprised they didn't do before because that makes sense.
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
And they're under new management. Steve Kuhn is gone. It seems like they have some energy, with their new management to make these changes. And DUPR Scott, who's their analytics guy, he did basically an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and I used it as an opportunity to ask him about facility managers that report scores from tournaments that do not take place in their own facility. So, for example, if a player goes to a different state, does well, comes back, sometimes that player will ask the facility manager at his local club to input those scores. And Scott,
because they don't need validation. That's the problem. They don't need to be validated.
Well, there's certain people with high-level access to DUPR that can input scores that do not require validation. That's right. And he said that it's fraud. DUPR Scott said it's fraud and it should absolutely be reported. Facility directors reporting scores that are not their own is fraudulent behavior. And he says that they may call this out more specifically in the DUPR Code of Conduct. So I know this goes on. I think it's fairly common, and I'm glad that DUPR's going to look at that, because what you want is for either, a person's score, whether that's going to be reported, should be decided before they play, not after. They shouldn't be able to play well and get it reported and then play poorly and not mention it to the facility director.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was fun. I think that's great, because when we went out to Craig and I went out to Daytona, we didn't do as well as we wanted, but we all knew prior to the start of that event, because we asked the directors while we were there, hey, are these going to be DUPR'd or not? And they told us it wasn't. So we played the event, and then a week later, the guys who won the event tried to log the match that we lost to them in. And I texted Craig, and I was like, I mean, it was a tournament. We were putting on the line, but should we validate this? And his opinion was, we also had won some games in that tournament. Unless we can get them all on there, we didn't want to have any of them on there. And I was like, that's a reasonable position, instead of just, cherry picking a loss, if you will. So I deleted the validation. They came back and kept trying to re-up it over and over again, to the point I was like, this is crazy. So finally it stopped. But with this DUPR update, all of a sudden, all 6 matches we played at that event are now on my DUPR. Like, an event that was verbally stated by the directors, and it wasn't me on DUPR, is now somehow in there. Now, I'm okay with that. I don't know how that happens. Like, I don't know if Pickleball Brackets has now figured out the integration with DUPR, if they're pulling data. There's someone else who told me that they have a tournament from last year, which is now showing up. That wasn't a DUPR tournament. That's now showing up. So that part I'm really confused about with this update. I don't mind it. I've said on the podcast before, my position is, if you go in a tournament and you're putting on the line, I want that in DUPR, but that's not our responsibility. That's the directors, and I don't want to just cherry pick certain games. So it's really bizarre.
I don't know how it is decided what gets into DUPR and what doesn't. For example, Stolp, we played in that tournament together last June. Those matches have all been submitted to DUPR. Like, I think they took them a couple months, but they got in. But then another tournament I did in August, were not. So I used to think, that if you had a lack of integration with pickleball brackets, that this meant that DUPR was doomed, because they're missing all of these tournaments. But it seems like a lot of the tournament results are winding up in DUPR. And moreover, there are tournaments like our men's team event or Tim's round robin events, or I guess it's a round robin, that are in DUPR but aren't in pickleball brackets. And as I look at them, I think, well, I don't know, maybe DUPR has more data than pickleball brackets at this point.
A couple other features that are worth noting, good or bad, is your total match count now matters. Your fluctuation of DUPR rating will, if you have a lot of scores matched or logged in there, a lot of matches logged in there, you're not going to fluctuate as much as someone who has not so many matches logged in there. So that's one notable change. And then also the algorithm retroactively pulled all this data from your previously inputted scores to come up with a new score. So if you haven't checked your DUPR score and you're hearing this for the first time, you might log in and see it's made a shift, because they did look back at all the scores that have ever been inputted on your behalf or by you. And then the third thing to note is they and this is maybe an issue I have, they are trying to add features that appeal to a wide audience, and one of them is a social component to connect people through
the feeds,
a feed section. And when I saw that, it's like, we have enough social media as is. I'm not looking to build a pickleball following on a pickleball social app that shares this, that, and another thing. It's another thing which I wish they'd invest more time and energy into their algorithm, making their system and platform airtight versus adding another feature that could in time just go away. Because what you heard is, they're going back to this feature that they had traditionally, or however long ago. And it's like they take 2 steps forward and 1 step back always. It's like, oh wait, we actually were onto something there. We should have invested time and energy there, but instead we tried this new bell and whistle. In my opinion, the social feed is a bell and whistle that I'm just not interested in. Maybe the rest of the community is, but
it's a distraction.
For me too. I agree.
It's a distraction from quality. I just want the algorithm to work. I have some other ideas that we will discuss maybe in future episodes. A couple of guys in our Marco Polo have been bouncing ideas around. It's not perfect. It seems to be getting better. Jesse, you have a final word on it?
I think that the social feed will succeed. I think people are interested in seeing, can you send me an update every time Tim Whiteman plays a game in DUPR? I think people are interested in that. Also, when you go to another city, it will help facilitate communications with people there so that you can get some play.
Good point.
Of course, I think the algorithm is the top priority. I mean, I think we would all like to see them separate mixed and gender doubles, but but the algorithm is getting better, and I think they're headed in the right direction.
I agree. I think the social component might gain some traction with those people who are social media adverse. So there's we all know people who are anti-Facebook and anti-social media, but play pickleball. And I bet you this could be their tiptoe into a social profile that gets them interested into doing that. It's just kind of using the back door. So we'll see what happens there.
Absolutely. Listeners, as one of our apologies to you for being absent for so long, we have decided that this episode is going to be a monster, and it's going to be very long. So here we are, nearly 45 minutes in, and we haven't even broken into the meat of the show. But we're going to do that now. So as we were thinking, like, what do we want to discuss? What do we want to do when we come back? It's like, do we talk about rule changes 2024, how to improve your game? And then we kind of like the idea of how to improve your game. And Jesse came up with the idea, 10 mistakes that are holding you back from being a good player, or perhaps 10 mistakes you're making as a good player. So we're going to run through those not quickly. We're going to get into them as meaty as we can. But Stolp, we're going to give you number 1. Earning. People who do not earning is a mistake. Why don't you talk about this?
I agree. I think if you're not earning or incorporating earnings into your game, you are leaving a valuable tool in your proverbial pickleball tool chest. And I think what an earning does, even successful or not, it adds pressure to your opponents in ways that other shots just don't. You force your opponent's hand to make certain shots, angle certain shots away from you, or attempt to hit you as you're outside of the court that influence their shot making ability. And I don't think there's any other shot that does this as strongly as an Ernie. I'll find myself jumping over the kitchen just to position myself over there in different situations to force my opponent's hand to go across court. And if that ball's left up, my partner then can step into the middle and finish it off. A lot of times a successful Ernie isn't even me hitting the actual Ernie. It is forcing them to do something that they wouldn't traditionally do if I was just staying put behind the kitchen line. I think the weapon it is as a shot itself intimidates people. I think if someone puts an Ernie and you put it back into them, their whole play style can change for that particular match. They're staying away from you. I've noticed that with myself. And so there might have to be adjustments made from my opponents with whether stacking or switching or not doing something that they're traditionally comfortable doing. And it just adds this level of pressure no other shot does. And I know not every everyone out there does it, but I would strongly encourage you to start working on it and seeing what it does to add value to your game. I love the Ernie. It's one of my favorite shots when executed correctly. And it's tough to master. It's easy to learn, tough to master, but definitely something everyone should be doing in their game.
Tim, do you have any thoughts on the Ernie?
Yeah, I've never successfully done one, I don't think. And there was exactly one day that I made a concerted effort to try to pull one off. And I guess my initial thought as I was listening to Stolp do his spiel was that, you know, all the unsuccessful attempts at Ernieing just dissuade me from trying it again, wanting to try it again, because dude, this is never going to happen. I'm never going to actually be able to hit one. So what am I doing? But it occurs to me that day that I was trying it, it didn't cost us anything. Like, it gave the opponents a different look. It made them think about stuff a little bit differently. And it was effective, even though I wasn't hitting it. So I think there's an argument to be made for the threat of an Ernie and just making sure that your opponents don't get too comfortable over there. So I guess I would love to be able to pull one off, but I just don't. I hate drilling because it's boring. And I just, you know, especially in rally scoring, I don't know how often I'm going to be doing it. But if my partner is doing it, then I'm all in favor. I love trying to fill the gaps that making sure I'm in the right position as my partner is trying to Ernie. That's always kind of stimulating to me. And if my opponents are doing it, yeah, I have to be aware of that threat. So it's a different component for sure that I think still makes sense.
It makes me laugh, Tim, that you're so athletic and you still haven't figured this simple little
I don't
thing
like
out.
looking at my feet. I don't want to look at my feet. That's all it is. I don't want to look down. And
I don't look at my
You
feet.
have to.
I just jump. It's so for Tim, you continually crack me up because you're more than athletic enough to be great at this thing. But I think and Jesse, I'm curious what you would respond to this. There's two primary things. And Stolp basically said them. I'm going to try and break them down to two that the Ernie does. It makes your opponents think more. They just have to. They can't just go on autopilot or get in the zone. They have to be thinking. And two is you can kind of think there's three spots to think on the court: across, middle, and straight ahead. If you take away that straight ahead, then your partner knows the ball is going to come middle or outside, and they can tune in on that. They don't have to be and they don't have to think about as much, right? So I just think if you're really good at it, if you can prove that the threat is real, even if you miss a couple, man, they're like, do I want to go up the line? Maybe I don't. And then I'm going to change my shot. It makes them think, and it takes away options.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. There's three options, and you've taken away 33%. If you can eliminate one of those options, you've taken away 33% of that court. And by the way, that shot, if I'm on the right and you're in front of me and you're a right-handed player, that straight ahead dink to your backhand, if the person isn't going to Ernie, is often a very effective shot. A lot of people, they can cross-court dink, but a straight ahead dink to their backhand is very difficult for a lot of players to handle. Well, so that's my favorite shot. But if you can Ernie and you can prove that you can Ernie, you take away that shot from me. So I think I'm a big proponent of doing it. I'm trying to do it more in my game. That is Ernie more. And it can really mess up your opponent if they like that shot.
And last comment for me, nothing is a momentum builder than a successful Ernie.
That's
When
true.
Jesse puts that shot that he just talked about at your feet, and then they come straight ahead to you, and you're in their face at the net to slam that ball down, and it is for a clean winner. No other shot induces chest bumps, woo, loud screams, high fives than a successful Ernie, and momentum is seriously built off that, which I think is a big deal in pickleball. Momentum, confidence, all of those intangible things come from an Ernie, a successful Ernie. And as a habitual earner, there is no better feeling than a successful one.
100%. Yeah. Good players. They're Tim's an example. Tim's not just good. Tim's excellent. And Tim doesn't earny. But all good players should be incorporating into their game because it will add value. So moving on to the second mistake. Timmy, you've discussed that you've got strong feelings about when not following your partner when they move out wide for an earny or to cover the line and just not being mobile there.
Yeah, so when I think about this, I'm thinking about I'm the guy that's moving to the left, and a lot of times I'm on the left anyway. That's where I like to play. And if I am having to deal with a dink that's out wide to my left, a lot of times I'll just be aggressive with that shot with my backhand. You know, I have the step back two-hander, and I will drive middle a lot. And I realize that's not something that's probably going to be a clean winner. It's probably going to be, if the other team is doing it right, they're going to watch that middle and they're going to block it back. So what I'm expecting, you don't want to leave gaps on your side of the court. Like, you want to make it difficult for them to find the holes, right? So I really expect my opponent to be covering the middle as I'm going out wide.
Your partner.
Yes, my partner.
No.
Sorry.
Well, also your opponents. Your opponents are pitching that gap
Well,
that you're
I
trying
don't
to
care what
find.
they're doing. I'm assuming they're going to cover the middle because, that's where the threat is. If I'm out wide, they have to cover the middle. But likewise, their response needs to be covered by my partner. Like, he needs to step over and cover the middle too to deal with their block of my attack. Because I can't get there. I'm not gonna be able to get there. I'm selling out for this backhand. That's just what I do. I don't know if that's smart or not, but my partner needs to realize that there's at least a chance that I could do that. It doesn't hurt him at all to step over and cover the middle. Even if it's a dink, it doesn't hurt him at all to slide with me and just cover the middle and guard against that threat of the block returning towards the middle. So many times, if my partner doesn't do that, I shoot him that look, like, dude, why weren't you there? How come you didn't step over? Why didn't you realize that I was going to do that? Not that he needs to be reading my mind, but there's a chance that I'm going to do that. I mean, most people that play with me know that I've got a two-hand backhand and I like to be aggressive with that shot. So the only way that we're going to be beat, for the most part, with a response to that two-hander is down the middle. So be there.
Yeah, I was the transgressor that you're speaking of that got that look from you a couple times last week. Jesse Stolp, anything to add to that?
Well, I just want to say, look, we're talking about mistakes that good players make. And, of course, like, we're well aware that the fundamentals are the most important thing, like hitting a quality third shot drop, hitting a quality third shot drive that doesn't go into the net. And we're sort of focusing on non-obvious mistakes that players make. And this is a good example. It doesn't require really any technical skill. You just got to move your body to the middle. And so it's a cognitive mistake. And I make this mistake a lot. So it's something I'm trying to work on.
Yeah, great call out there, Jesse. And then what I would add is, for me, this is just nonverbal communication is what it boils down to. And the nonverbal cue here is, if your partner's wide, that's my tell to go to the middle. It should be automatic. You shouldn't necessarily have to think about that. But so many times in the heat of the battle, you just find yourself flat-footed and when you should be moving. And for me, this is just working on your nonverbal cues, nonverbal communications with your partner, because the game happens fast. And if you're not paying attention and you're not communicating with your partner both verbally and non-verbally, your partners are or your opponents will expose that. So working on that nonverbal communication and cues on when to beware.
Yeah, and Tim, I can't say whether that two-hand speed up down the middle when you get drawn to the left is smart or not. I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that when I come over, and I'm actually going to not use you as the example because you're pretty unique in how you handle that situation when you're pulled wide. Most people will keep it as a dink. When you, as me, come over to that middle and fill in that gap, I'm all about trying to make or force my opponents to take the shot I want, when I vacate the right side and come to the middle, I'm telegraphing to them, go to the open space that I just came from. Like, go over there. And I can be ahead of that. I can predict it and then just slide back and then watch where they slide and then continue to try and poke at the gaps. Now, what Tim does doesn't really allow for that. It ends up becoming a firefight. And if you do slide over, especially with a guy like me with my backhand counter, that's not a situation I'm worried about being in. I don't mind that, but that's not where I think most people are going to see it. Most people are going to see creating a vacancy and then having to recover that vacancy. Again, those three spots, outside, middle, or near side, give them higher probability choices. Make them take the choice you want to. And your court movement with your partner can dictate a lot of what choice they're going to make or what shot they're going to select.
Yeah, you should imagine that there's like a 3-foot long string that's attached to you and your partner. And so when they slide, you slide. They'll pull you over and you'll pull them over.
Absolutely. All right. The next mistake that good players are making is they are letting lobs bounce. Tim, this is another one of your bit of pet peeves over here.
Yeah, I get so frustrated when I see my partner let the lob bounce. I think it gives your opponents a gift. First of all, you don't know what kind of spin that ball is going to have when it bounces. How many times have you seen someone just get totally tripped up and disoriented over a weird spin on a bounce, and they just can't handle it? They don't see it coming, and then it screws them up. I mean, it's one of the hardest shots that you have to deal with. The probability of that being produced off of a defensive lob, for example, that was hit out of desperation is pretty high. Like, there's going to be some weird action on that ball, so don't let it bounce. The other thing is, even if your overhead isn't great, like, you're still taking time away from your opponents. You're not letting them get set up. You're hitting it as early as possible so they don't get as long of a look at what you and your partner are doing as they would if you let it bounce. And in most cases, an overhead, even a weak one, is still a stronger shot than whatever you're going to do after you let it bounce. So I'm a big proponent of just hit the overhead. And if you're not good at it, drill it, I dare say.
Jesse, I believe you have a counterpoint to this.
Well, I both agree and disagree. I agree that if you can take it out of the air, that's extremely effective. And Tim, you're very good at that. But I also agree that if you're not good at it, you should drill it. And we've seen some of the players in our groups, like Jared and we, get better with their overheads by drilling it. But at the same time, I feel like people need to know their own limitations. And if you struggle with overheads, or if you feel like you don't really have a good bead on that ball, I see people make this mistake a lot of overreaching and hitting that ball either into the net or out, because they've taken a ball out of the air that they don't really have the skill level to do. And so I think if you're really reaching for it, or if it's to your backhand and you're struggling with that shot, and you don't really have the 40 years of tennis skills like Tim does, yes, it's okay to just calmly but quickly retreat to that line and take a shot, whether it's a drive or a drop or a lob. And so I partially agree.
Awesome. Yeah. One correction. I would say it's 30 years of tennis. Tim's not quite that old to have 40 years of tennis, but the point does 35, remain. 35. Yeah. Not many people have a backhand overhead. I think Tim has one. I have one, but very few people do have it. So whether you kind of come over and hit a little bit of an inside out with your forehand, kind of treat your forehand like a backhand at times, it can be risky, but generally I'm going to want to take away as much time from my opponents as possible. Even if it's a really good lob, the sooner I can get on it and send it back, they're not able to collect themselves and see what's coming.
Well, also, if you're thinking about hitting a backhand overhead, it might not be your overhead. It might be your partner's overhead.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Probability and statistics. From my experience, the probability of hitting an overhead out of the air, you are more successful than letting it bounce. From everything that I've seen in plays, and if you retreat and give your opponents, you turn an offensive shot into a defensive shot, meaning you let it bounce and you play defense by dropping. Then you're letting your opponents back into the game. Now, to Jesse's point, yes, you stay in the point longer because you don't hit it into the net or out. But probability speaking, that I've seen in my experience, if you do that shot and you give your opponents a chance to become offensive off of a defensive shot, it's better to take it out of the air, whether or not you have a good overhead. I've just seen finishing moves of lobs that are taken out of the air work more times than not versus getting around that ball, letting it drop, and extending the point. Because even if you run around, if there's a lob where you have to run back, let it bounce, you still have to collect yourself, make a good drop, and things still have to go right for you to kind of recover from that shot. Take all that out of the equation and just try and put it away. Even if you don't, for me, it makes more sense to take it out of the air.
Awesome. Actually, we are going to have to renege on a promise here, and we're running a bit shorter on time than I expected. So I'm going to cherry pick. We have 10 of these mistakes. I'm going to have to cherry pick some of them. So number 4 was bad returns, but I think we all can understand if you're returning short, you're just going to have a good player just run up and plow that ball through you. And that's not fun for anybody, especially if you're returning it, your partner's already up there. There's a lot to be said about dinking to the same spot. Jesse, you and I particularly have strong opinions on that, but we can probably do a dinking episode in the future. I want to move to mistake number 6, which is not playing into your partner's strengths. This is one of the things I preach constantly. When the way we play, we see a dozen different players in a week, right? We in open plays and rec plays and in our king of the court situations, we're gonna team up and partner with a wide swath of players of various skill levels, from 5-0 if we end up on the court with Louis to guys who maybe are still just barely pushing into the 4-5 category. And you have to know who you're playing with and what they're good at doing and know their strengths. So when I play with Stolp, I play in a certain way that I know is beneficial to his game. I try and put a lot of dinks over to his side so that he can earn them. I try and dink towards the middle so that he can be there with his fork, because Stolp, you play the left for me, so that you can attack the middle if they come at us. I very, very rarely play up my side of the court at all. I want the ball in front of you as much as I can, right? With some players, I'm not going to be doing that as much. With Tim, I actually take a step behind the line and try and get behind him, because I know he wants to step in and speed up a dead dink, an attackable dink, even something that most people are not going to be able to do anything with. Tim is going to make something work. And so I vacate at more court than I cede more court than I would with other players, perhaps even Jesse. I cede more court to Tim than I would to Jesse because I know what Tim is good at. And I'm not out there looking to get mine. I'm not trying to necessarily play the game I want to play. This is something I've struggled with because I like to play a little bit slower, and some players like to play faster. And I'm like, no, if I can build my game, build this rally, build my patterns into what they do well, then they are going to be more successful and I can adjust. And then if they do the flip side, they say, Tim says, hey, I'm a fast player, but Eoin likes it just a little bit slower. I'm going to maybe only attack 60 or 70% of the balls I normally would. That's going to help me. Excuse me. So as we work with each other, trying to play into each other's strengths, I think it builds both players for success.
Yeah, for me, the way I as a alpha who just wants to take everything, that does not necessarily mean I should do that. In cases where I play with guys like Louis or people who are better than me, let the better players play. Like, give them their shots that they can then make our opponents make a mistake to when it's my turn to put the ball away as an alpha, do that. But like if you're taking shots away from your partner who has more skill than you, you're doing your partnership a disservice. So for me, my toxic trait, I always joke, is like I'm a toxic aggressive player, and I got to let things go. I need to let you guys, as my partner with your strengths, play into those strengths. And that may mean for me to let things go to set up the next shot or the shot after that to then be successful to put that ball away. Let the strengths of your partners shine through by deferring to them in some situations.
Absolutely. Anything to add there, gents?
Yeah, I deal with this a little bit when I decide whether or not to play left side or right side. If I'm on the right side, I like hitting that backhand in the middle, and I like hitting some of the right side shots, but I'm way better on the left. So it's like, do I let my partner, who's usually more effective on the left, be on the left, or do I just stay on the left because I'm still a little better at doing left side things than he is? So that's always something that I have to deal with. It's like I can open up the best of my partner, or I'm still more effective over on that side than he is, so maybe I should just be over there. So that's always something I'm kind of juggling.
Yeah, we've had such interesting conversations, particularly you and I playing at Springs, where I'm like, did you really need to do that speed up? I understand you have that shot, but if they block it, it comes back. You're like, well, be ready. And I'm like, well, you're right. I should be ready. It's like, I know how you play. I know what you do. I know what you're good at. So I just need to be prepped for that ball to get sped up and to come back. Like I need to be ready to go fast at all times. So, but anyway, focus on helping your partner out when you can, and especially when it doesn't actually compromise your own game. So moving on, mistake number 7, and I expect to get a little bit of heat from you guys for this one, as Tim has told me. This is a huge mistake. One of my biggest pet peeves that good players are making is that they are not customizing their paddle. They're playing with a stock paddle, fresh out of the plastic, fresh out of the packaging, and it's an error. Different paddles are constructed different ways, and different people like certain things. And no matter how good a tool is, it's not going to be the same for every single person coming out stock. You need to be adding lead tape. You need to be increasing the grip size if you want. I play with 2 overgrips. I used to play with 4. I'm trying to decrease it now. So I do stock plus 2. I used to do stock plus 4, which was huge, right? I know where I want my lead tape. I play around with the edge guard tape. I use electrical tape. I do different colors. I know the configurations I want that are really useful. And I have carried that from various paddles that I've tried. Now, it took me a long time to learn this, but it actually shores up sweet spots. It can give you better topspin and whipping power. It can give you better blocking and more stabilization. Even if you're increasing the swing weight, like get stronger, get in the gym. So I think it is a huge mistake that if you are a good player and you have not dabbled with or play around or tried to improve your tool by customizing it.
Can I go first?
Tim.
Come on, Tim. I need to get in here too, but you go.
Okay. So my initial response, first of all, do you, to each their own, but you just spent $300 for a paddle and you're saying it needs work. Like it needs something done to it. The $300 you just spent isn't good enough. And then you're telling me I need to get a gym membership because I'm not strong enough to whip that thing around after I put tape on it. Like, I'm not willing to do this stuff. Okay. So that's all I'm saying.
Oh man.
Jesse, hop in before I roast this guy.
I'll just say, if I were to make a list of the top 1,000 mistakes that good players make, I'm not sure this one would be on that list.
Eoin, yeah, I don't know how the heck this thing made the list. Probably because you're on the show.
Probably because he did the list.
I wanted it. I wanted it.
This is what we call in the baseball world eye wash. It's like someone who wears eye black at a night game. Like, where's the glare of the sun going to come from? It's like wearing batting gloves and then having batting gloves in your back pockets. Like, what's the point? It's all for show. You want people to take a look at you and what's different about you. I don't knock that. People need swag. People need to have their confidence built up, but I don't need a purple like grip tape and weight this and counterweight that and like a freaking pinwheel on the top to swing a paddle, man. Like, let me just, give me I'll take my kid's paper mache project out there and play just the same as I would with a $300 paddle. I mean, there's no real difference in some of these things. I mean, the technology, to Tim's point, if you're paying $300, let the technology work. And that's the case. Like, I love my carbon paddle. I love what it does for me. But you know what? That thing's as stock comes. I did put some electrical tape around the edge because I scrape it sometimes from being overly aggressive. And so I want to keep that edge nice and safe. But other than that, you don't need NASA space rocket boosters on the side of it. Like, come on, just play the game. It's a paddle. Don't worry about it.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's awesome.
It's all right. You guys can be wrong. That's okay. All right. Run out of time. So we got one more. And I think we're gonna finish with not fixing your backhand.
Oh, can I say one thing though, Ian, about the return to serve bit, which is common sense, like hit a good return to serve. I just want to talk really quickly about if you're the guy that's at the kitchen line, so you're not the returner, you're the partner, and you see your partner hit just a soft cookie cutter return that just floats to the middle of the court, it bounces high. What do you do? Are you just covering your midsection so you don't get pegged with a hard drive, or do you back up? Do you take a couple steps back and just signal to the other team that you're retreating, that you're in trouble? Like, what do you do? I'm glad you asked
this question, because I have a very concrete answer that is purposeful and intentional from me, and it's because I'm a bit of a psycho. I will literally, if it's middle of the court, I'll take the middle. If it's right or left, I will literally go and position myself directly in line with that ball and just put my paddle here and say, test me. And I will take that drive and I will eat it. And it is a willing choice. And it is two goats on a bridge, and it's a dare. And I've gotten quite good at eating that thing and deflecting it back. Now, we all know my counterpunch is probably the strongest aspect of my game. So I might have a better advantage of that than other people. But I will purposefully go and just say, do it, bring it on. And I'll face it head on. I don't know if that's the best strategy for everyone, but it tends to work for me.
What about you guys?
I pray.
Yeah. If you're a man of faith, that's where that kicks in.
My blood's still boiling from the custom paddle thing, so I wasn't to the question. I can't believe that we just talked about that for the last 3 minutes, but continue.
Stolp, it's still okay to be wrong.
All right, well, I'll just tell you, I think I'm backing up. I don't think I do this nearly enough. I think I'm rolling my eyes at my partner at that point and judging very harshly and just conceding that we're going to lose this point because of that crappy return. So don't hit a crappy return. Now, if it's a really good serve, that's understandable. If it's not that great of a serve and you just hit a crappy return, I couldn't be more annoyed. I'm just so annoyed. Just at least get it deep. Like, at least make life a little bit difficult for them. But if it's a bad return, I think the play is to drop back a couple of steps and prepare to reset. It's not what we wanted to do, but I think that's the play. Unless you're Ian with a great counter.
Oh, I know why I wasn't listening, because this was directed exactly towards me. I know exactly. This point was brought up because Tim's frustrations is when I play and I do the bad return.
That's actually why I left Lifetime, Stolp.
I figured.
I got sick of seeing. No, I'm just
That's totally acceptable, and I just love that my natural inclination when it talks about returns is to just check out. My response to that is have a better return, and I'm talking to myself, and so I've been really working on. It doesn't necessarily always have to be the most aggressive thing with speed, spin. And
it doesn't have to at all. It
doesn't. It just has to be deep, and 9 times out of 10, that's going to work. So work on just putting that ball deep, because if you give your opponents a threat to move up, because I've been on the other end of that where Tim will just salivate and watch a ball high and punish it, and that's not fun either. So just be better on your returns. I'll take your question and just put it back on myself of saying just be better at
just be better. We're getting real close, guys, so I'm gonna just fix your backhand. Too many good players do not emphasize improving their backhand. Fix your serve, get it deep, get it fast, learn to put it in a couple different places, and then what Jesse continually preaches, drill, drill, drill. If you really want to improve, you want to go from good to great and great to excellent, you got to drill. But before we close it out, guys, we're kind of new segment, if you will. What are we looking forward to in the next week, in the next month? Anything on the horizon for the Pickle Bros that is worth noting to the audience? Timmy.
I'm looking forward to this weekend's tournament for sure. I'm playing singles in the middle of the day on Friday, and there are some world beaters in this singles tournament. Miles, Luke Lorenz is a beast. He's one of the guys whose DUPR went way up after this new algorithm change. And I don't know how, looking at his matches, but he deserves it.
Former pro tennis player. Like,
he's
actually
so good. He actually intimidates you just with how he moves on the court. Like, oh my gosh, nothing's about to work against this guy. But he'll be playing singles. I'll be playing. Miles is amazing. Nick is amazing. It's just going to be really fun. And I don't know how, we'll see how I do with this new paddle of mine. Might be too powerful. I don't know. I'm going to drill a couple. Yes, I'm going to drill a couple of times over the next couple of days and see.
No, you won't.
See how it goes with this new paddle. But I'm excited for that. And then I'm playing with my buddy Ryan on Saturday in the men's doubles. So that is what's ahead for me.
Stolp, Jesse, anything that is coming up for you?
Adding a new tool to the tool chest. I drilled with Jesse and a couple other guys, a two-handed backhand, and to the point of working on that, just by adding that layer into your game, the two-handed backhand, it opens up a whole new world of opportunities. Even if it's not the most aggressive shot yet, I've been incorporating it into rec play. I've been finding some very valuable uses of it, especially with return of serve. So I can set myself up rather than being all the way to the left and favoring my forehand. If I stand in the middle and take that two-handed backhand, I just give myself more options there. And then also an aggressive two-handed dink at the kitchen, two-handed backhand dink. I'm finding some very great uses out of that as well. So I'm just excited to add another layer to my game to add to my development.
Awesome, guys. Well, listeners, Jesse, one more thing to add.
I'm just trying to stay healthy. I've had a lot of injuries over the last 6 months, so I'm doing like between an hour and a half and 2 hours of PT every day. And at this moment, I'm in a good spot, so hopefully that'll continue.
Keep playing more and more. So, listeners, thank you guys for sticking with us, being loyal, being patient, coming back for season 2 of the Picklebros Podcast. We don't have a regular schedule, so we will not be coming out every Wednesday as we did in season 1, but we will still be chugging along with new episodes, great content, and we are very, very pleased to finally be back. So we love you all. Stay safe and stay out of the kitchen.